My name is Bryson. I'm a 10th grader at Brookwood High School, and this is my Laws of Life essay. I walked into my 3rd grade classroom, ready for another day. Waltzing over to my seat, I sat down next to a friend who I'd been talking to for a few weeks. But when I sat down, a cloud covered her face. She could barely make eye contact, and she looked ashamed. I greeted her, but she didn't respond, and suddenly looked down into her lap. I asked, "What's wrong?" And she responded, "My mother told me we can't be friends anymore because you're black." I was shell-shocked, frozen in my seat. She didn't look up and I couldn't get up. The rest of the day was a blur, and her words bounced around my head like echoes in a cavern. When I got home, I told my mom about the incident, and she sat me on the porch with my dad and my brother. My mother was furious. She wanted to drive over to that girl's house and have a word, and maybe more, with that mother. My brother, only in 1st grade, vowed to defend me the next day at school. My mom told me about slavery and segregation and Jim Crow. We talked about how black people weren't given the same rights, but we had to fight for them over 400 years of living on this continent, and still continue to fight for them today. Then my dad spoke. He had always been quiet and reserved, but his words changed me as he described his experiences with segregation. Growing up in rural Mississippi, my dad was denied the privilege of attending a public school because of his race. Additionally, he told me about how his classmates called him slurs or how he'd have to enter the movie theater from the back door. My own father's challenges with racism ripped the blindfold of naivety from my eyes, and I saw for the first time how dark the world truly could be. But I didn't turn to cynicism or hatred. I didn't surrender in the face of prejudice. I went to school that next day, waved to that girl, and acted like she hadn't said anything painful the day before. Thinking back, how could I blame an 8-year-old girl for parroting her mother's bigotry? And how could I fault the sins of the daughter for the sins of the mother? And even for the mother, I felt the need to acquit. She'd instilled a hatred in her daughter, and one that was so painful to me, the memory still rings clear as day nearly 8 years later. But I remember a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. "We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love." I realized that we must forgive, for without forgiveness, fear turns to bitterness and bitterness to hatred. What would continuing to resent that girl and her family accomplish? There would be no gain from a rivalry between our families. That girl still goes to my school. That girl is still in my class. We see her family in social situations, and my mother has to hold back the urge to confront that mother. But I know it would do no good. I doubt that girl even remembers what she said to me so many years ago on that fateful morning. But I will remember. Despite her heartless words, she isn't some raving racist today. In fact, she's a progressive and actively argues for expanded civil rights in the nation and across the world. See, without forgiveness, we can't progress as a society. And if we lose our capacity to forgive, we lose our humanity itself. And if there's one thing I could say to her about that incident oh so long ago, I would say thank you. I would thank her for showing me that with forgiveness, people are given the seed to grow. And without that seed, there will never be a blossom of love. I want to thank my language arts teacher, Melissa Flood, for leading me through the process of writing this essay. And I want to thank my families for supporting me in that incident and supporting me in writing my essay. Thank you.